Okay. So thank you for inviting me to deliver my ideas in this August seminar. I thank North Bengal University for inviting me to speak about queer and its various implications. And I would choose the theory and praxis, which is the central unit of the seminar, in its utilization with that of witches in Macbeth by William Shakespeare. So I would first and foremost look into the conceptualization of the witches as pointed out from the text itself. Shakespearean texts are very much of performative art, and from page to stage is a journey which is a very smooth one for him. And when now we hardly have any manuscripts, the stage has become the page. So I am taking a page out of the stage in quoting Banquo's speech to indicate the viability of witches as queer. So when Banquo gives this particular speech, which we can all see, he is not judgmental per se as a churchman would have been in this time, in Shakespearean time, or in the time which originally was Macbeth's time in Scotland in 12th century, where witches are persecuted, as we know very well. So what Banquo's speech tells us is a more of a question to understand the gender rather than merely otherize it, or merely demonize it, or merely marginalize it. So when Reginald Scott is writing in his discovery of witchcraft, what does he first indicate is an impeachment of witches' power and elementary bodies tending to rebuke of such attributes. So the elemental power of the witches, so they are treated by Reginald Scott as somebody who possess power which is beyond natural, something which is not very clearly pointed out when Shakespeare is using his witches, though they appear in thunder and lightning, though they have the power of prophecy, but none of them actually points out the witch's status as supernatural. Rather, Shakespeare's invocation has always been to use the multiplicities of the gender identity. And when he uses beard in witches and goes beyond the interpretive qualitative analysis, what we see is that this undefinable position of queer, which is not only third or fourth gender or something which is bracketed outside the binaries between male and female. Now, what we see again in King James's writing of demonology, we find that witches, the treatment of the witches are again, given on a very supernatural level. So in demonology, we see that when Philomathus says, these witches on the other part, being enticed either for the desire of revenge or of worldly riches, their whole practices are either to hunt men and their goods, or what they possess for satisfying of their cruel mind in the former, or else of the rack in whatsoever sort of any whom God will permit them to have power of, to satisfy their greedy desire in the last point. So the greed, the alternative power resources were also something other than the supernatural elements that is being dictated on the witches, that they are powerful beyond natural ability. But what Shakespeare took from the demonology is the idea of alternate power structure. So the power structure, which was essentially patriarchal, which is essentially something which demonizes any other gender, is being used by William Shakespeare to try and show that no, these powers are not just elemental. They are obviously seeking an alternative power modus operandi, but that is not supernaturally manifested. So we come to a painting by Hans Baldung Green, which brings out the very idea of pitchforks and of broomsticks, which also relate the witches with that of Inferno, or in a post-Hebraic ideas of the being beyond the being of naturalism. So this is where we come across and find that these witches, which Hans Baldung Grien has pointed out, is definitely a recollection of the operational value in which Shakespeare has based his textuality of witches, and his performances are also very importantly about the of the queer gender. So if we see the biblical connotations that are being picked up to vilify the witches, we see that in King James's record, we see, indeed, we read that Samuel could tell where things lost were, strayed, etc. But we see that gift also ceased by coming of Christ, according to the saying of Paul. So, this gift, the supernatural gift, has ceased to function with the coming of Christ. At sundry times and in diverse manners, God spoke in the old times by our father, the prophets. In these last days, he had spoken unto us by his Son, etc. in the Hebrews. He quotes and says that prophecy is a power that is essentially holistic, which HOLISTIC rather than WHOLISTIC, and therefore these witches who are also doing the prophecy is actually malleable in force as opposite to God, who is summum bonum, and these witches are infimum malum. As we move to the next slide, we see again the Salvatore Rosa's painting. And what becomes very evident in this painting is the otherization that I have spoken about. And this sagging of breast, the cauldron, and the human entrails brings us definitely to the Act 4, Scene 1 of the witches. And before we move to that Act 4, Scene 1, the cauldron scene, which is very much well represented by Salvatore Rosa in here, what we want to see is Shakespeare does not indicate that the witches are nightmare incarnate, which the later theorists try to, project their own ideas into that of Shakespeare's performance. There is a creative, interpretive operation when we see the critics pointing out how Shakespeare is using the witches, but it's more what I wanted to do is not that. What I wanted to do is not project my vision into Shakespeare, rather trying to interpret what Shakespeare tries to say by using the witches not as something which is beyond the realm of earth. So Stephen Orgel comments that witches live outside the social order but embody its contradiction. This is exactly what Banquo's formulation of queer, how witches belong to the queer sexuality. The witches are thus marginalized and ostracized sometimes from the society because of their gender indeterminacy. The women with beards suggest that the nature is, to quote Foucault, anarchic, full of competing, not ordered and hierarchical. So nature is not ordered or hierarchical. So this is exactly what Shakespeare is trying to do, trying to find that these anarchic angels. So the witches are not evil or good. They are the human potential anarchic will. And they ensure the emergence of difference, Foucauldian difference. So when Banquo is laboring to interpret the witches and his comments on them stresses their indeterminacy, the witches inhabit a borderland between the clearly marked states. So they cannot enter Scotland because Scotland is a state which cannot tolerate the beyond binaries of gender, and for them the witches stands as chaos. For them the witches stands as anti-Christian, anti-Christ. And just like what Crusade perfunctionally did, they looked upon the exterminating the Saracens, the infidels. So witches are also looked as the infidels. They are also looked as pagan. Now, when I'm talking about paganism, as their sacrifices in the cauldron testifies, which Shakespeare also indicates in the cauldron scene, which we will look forward to, is the very concept of animal sacrifice and human cannibalism, which is regarded as a pagan rituals, and that should be exterminated with Christian benevolence. That is exactly where the one of the concept of crusade comes. And this tableau of the which we see in front of us is where you have the half-naked, demonic-looking old woman and chewing on the breasts of human. Again, something which is cannibalistic. We see the relational value that Elizabethan age has developed with Ottoman Empire. Now, Shakespeare has not very much looked through in various religious performances, and definitely he knew the relation with Ottoman Empire, the land of infidels, according to the Crusade times, the land of pagans. And the witches sometimes remind me of the rituals of the Turks and their alternate power network of attacking the most Christian empire, the Catholic faith. And this is exactly where the first scene, this is exactly where the first scene takes us. When we read the very Act 1, Scene 1, we are confronted by this very idea that the alternative power system to that of the Christianity, to the Holy Rome, and which was supported by the French and the Spanish, and definitely not so much by the Protestantism that came with Elizabethan age in England, and Martin Luther's gospel, which kind of nullified the Catholic influences in England. But Shakespearean idea of the witches, the religion of the witches as an other, is has a lot of tendential similarities with that of the Saracens, the Turks and Arabs, with whom they have a relationship, trade relationship, during the 15th, 16th, 17th century. So I would just like to read the part in the Act 1, Scene 1, when he says, "Fair is foul, foul is fair, hover through the fog and fill the air." It's a very simple line, but what we come across in this particular line is the word fair and foul instead of fair and, dark or black. So it's not an ethnic skin color division. So fair and foul, which could be very well be a moralistic and theocratic and theological dispute that the witches have, is also something which potentiates the very phenomenological debate that the good and evil is not just fair and foul. So this fair and foul can be the foulness of theological disputes, as well as something which is beyond theocracy as well. So now, the Act 1, Scene 3, where the witches meet, I would like to read a little bit of that, where it says, "Where hast thou been, sister?" And says, "Killing swine." Second witch says, "Killing swine." The third says, "Sister, where thou?" The first witch says, "The seller's wife has chestnut in her lap." The seller's wife has chestnut in her lap, and munched and munched and munched. "Give me," quoth I. "Aroint thee, witch." This is the first time where, the word witch is being used in the text. "Aroint thee, witch, the rum-fed Runyon cried, her husband to Aleppo gone." So this is the reference that I'm trying to bring out. "Master of the tiger, but in a sieve I'll thither sail, and like a rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll do." So what she is going to do is going to take revenge on the sailor, because sailor's wife had denied them basic ingredient of food. So what they will do is, "I'll drain him dry as a hay, and sleep shall neither night nor day hang upon the penthouse lead. He shall live a man for bed, weary 7 nights, 9 times 9 shall he dwindle, peak and pine. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest tossed. Look what I have." So this is the revenge charm that they go, and at the end before the entrance of Macbeth, they says, "Weird sisters, hand in hand, the posters of sea and land, thus do go about, thrice to thine and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9. Peace, the charms wound up." So this is where the ritualistic pattern which is established very much reminds me of an alternative power system within a Christendom. So So whereas the feudal fief Duncan, who has ostracized the witches because of their gender, because of their religious disposition, these witches form a group of their own outside that of Scotland. In the heath, they cannot come inside, they can just meet in the heath, and heath represents something of barren land, as barren as them. So they are very much, the witches are very much alternative power system, the queer power system, and they meet outside the Christendom, and they kind of metaphorically, or rather metonomically, becomes very much like a terrorist association who will secure Macbeth, the man who can dismantle Duncan's power regime, and then they will destroy Macbeth and take control of the state. That's how the ISIs, the Hamas, has tried to venture inside the power structure, whether it is of Israel or Lebanon. The basic idea of alternative power structure as by the witches, as something which is which are beyond binaries of good and evil. So these witches, whether they are terrorists who are who are the future terrorists who are going to question the basic hegemony of Christian power, is what becomes a confounding question. And just like another subaltern, Shylock, a Jew, the witches can give the following dialogue as much as possible. Just like Shylock in Venice, as used as the other, as something who is again not Christian, something who is who's a Jew and persecuted by the state autocracy and bureaucracy, presents a kind of an example of revenge. So this particular idea of revenge is as much present in the witches as in Shylock. So the persecution of a Christendom, and with a crusade again in the backdrop, the persecution of witches and the persecution of the Jews have continued. And whether they are both the infidels, you have to remember that. They are both something which is opposite to the power structure. They are alternative power structure. So if a Christian wrongs a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? So that is what we come across when the witches challenge the power structure and seduces and induces Macbeth with the hope, and get into the power structure. So now I would use some mathematical axioms to understand some of the ideas of the witches. Why mathematical syndromes? Because mathematics brings out the corporeality of cognitive manifestation. So if we see, and obviously Shakespeare is very aware of the numbers, and the mathematical precision of Shakespeare is something which puts him into a class of his own. So there are three witches, as we know. There are as opposition to that of the Holy Trinity, in nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti, in the name of Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, or the Holy Spirit. So whichever way you want to say. So these three witches are three in number, and they are the unholy trinity who is threatening Scotland. So this unholy trinity who is going to force the Scottish nobles to get humbled down is very important. Then again, we see the first scene, Act 1, Scene 1. Okay, Scene 1 is where the witches are there, and the Scene 1 has 13 lines. There are 3 witches who are speaking here. The first line is, "When shall we 3 meet again?" Second line is, "In thunder, lightning, or in rain." Third line is, "When the hurly-burly is done." Fourth line is, "When the battle's lost and won." Fifth line is, "That will be the set of sun." Sixth line is, "Where's the place?" Seventh is, "Upon the heath." Eighth is, "There to meet with Macbeth." Ninth is, "I come, Grey Malkin." 10th is, "Paddock calls." 11th is, "Anon." 12th is, "Fair is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the," and 13th line is, "Hover through the fog and fill the air." So this 13 is a ritualistic number, which dates back to the paganism again. So 13 was essentially the number of a journey of the moon, which is drawn through the celebration of the matriarchal power, the woman power, and the woman power are drawn from the 13 because if we go for the inverted pentagram, which was their symbol, we see 13 is the journey period. Like in the 13th year, a woman, traditionally, it's not obviously scientifically sealed, but traditionally on the 13th year, a woman starts their menstruation circle. On the 26th year, they're supposed to be having a childbirth, and in the 52nd year, they're supposed to go to the menopausal state, and in 104th year, they're supposed to perish. So the number 13 is very much implicitly suggested in the rituals of a woman's cycle. Again, when we see the journey of moon, as I have said, the 13 days are the gap that is incited there. Again, 13 comes in pagan world, in the matriarchal world, where there used to be 13 months a year instead of 12 months. So and those 13th month used to have the signification of 28 days, which was before the Christian calendar takes over and nullifies 13 as something evil, because of the Last Supper, where Christ has 13 disciples, including Christ. There were 13 disciples, and the 13th one to enter was Judas, who betrays. So the 13 becomes a very implicit and explicit number to be given in the Act 1, Scene 1. And the witches are using that significant number in the Act 1, Scene 1. So again, if you go for numerological sequence, where 1 signifies power, and in the 1 there is the witches are speaking, and that is that too of 13 lines. So witches of 13, 3 in number, becomes the most powerful agent in the text. 2 being the idea of beauty is something, because 2 is astrologically related, numerologically related to moon and the beauty. So that too is avoided by the witches wherever they are present, because they refuse to be bracketed within the beauty. They are beyond something which is beauty. Again, they come on the Act 3, Scene 3, Act 1, Scene 3. So just like 1 is power, 3 signifies, as I already said, Trinity. And very importantly, they appear in Act 3. scene 5, Act 3 being again something which is the climax and the Holy Trinity. And 5 is, if 4 signifies human, that is the four-limbed one. 5 is signifying holiness. Why I didn't add HOLI and why I put LY is significant, because I have not used the word HOLI in a that would be in a Christian sense. HOLINESS is a Christian sense. HOLY is before the Christianity, actually, before the Norman conquest took over, the spelling was HOLY. That is, so 5 signified holiness in the time, which is pre-Christian, whereas 3 signifies Trinity after the Christianity. So 5 is something which signifies holiness before the Norman conquest, 1096. And there the spelling was HOLY. So that is why I have used Y and not the Christian I. So this 5, where they meet, where they encounter Hecate, this kind of a boss. She's the boss of the witches, and she's like the gangster, and she says, why didn't you inform me? She's the the version which in the pop literature, which reminds me of the Godfather Michael Coriolanus sits on the chair, and the Hecate is very much reminder of that boss, and you have to listen to me or die. There are 2 options to it. Act 4, Scene 1, again something 4, which was again humanistic. It's less divine, where the courtroom scene takes place. So now I'll just jump into since I don't have much time, I'll jump into the courtroom scene. And the courtroom scene brings out the miniature of threat, which the woman power has. And the Act 4, Scene 1 is a very powerful scene where we have thrice the brindle cat had mewed, thrice says the first witch, second witch says thrice and once the hedge pig whined, third witch says harpier cries, it is time. So relevance to time being put into use. First witch says round about the cauldron go, in the poison entrail throw, toad that under cold stone, days and night has 31, sweltered venom sleeping got, boil thou first in the charmed pot. And all says double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. So this ritualistic cooking brings out the maternal power in Macbeth, which is not embroiled in the figure of a particular mother as it is in Coriolanus. It is instead diffused through the play, just like Lady Macbeth is, who is often called as the third witch or fourth witch or whatever, but she is more of a cultural phallus which governs the ideology of matriarchal threat, and largely through the Macbeth's relationship to them. So what we get to know is not something which the witches existing by themselves. Even the Calcutta University question for the undergraduate students comes that the role of witches, and it has to be linked with Macbeth, because it cannot be the significance only of the characters of the witches. You have to understand such is the queerness of Shakespearean ideologue that we do not, even in the Calcutta University question paper, we do not have the character of the witches just like any other character, like character of Macbeth, character of Lady Macbeth. No, we will have the role of witches in relation to Macbeth. So witches had to exist even now in relation to man. So the queer sexuality is something which is not given a dominant facade. And what we see is the very powerful ideologue that the witches are presenting to us. And in conclusion to my paper, I would like to add that for me, the queer is not other. They are not the threat. They are not the positionality that should be prejudicial. They are something that who are subalternized, otherized, and if they do not rise up, maybe not in the manner of the witches, maybe not in the manner of terrorists, maybe not in the manner of ISIs or Hamas, the way the alternate to Christian power structure, the Saracen power structure has risen up as a threat. The queer should come out with their own ideas, just like we have the rainbow procession that we other day had, the street manifestation, the awareness about the queer has to be made. Otherwise, they would be forever treated as the subalterns, or perhaps for the witches, and they would be always threatened even in the 21st century, and they would be even burned, like we have the rituals of burning people as witches even in present 21st century in Rajasthan or Gujarat, where the dominant heathenism and paganism has, and Uttar Pradesh, where the dominant heathenism and paganism has repressed the idea of gender equality, and they will keep burning the others, treating them as others and burning them as others and repressing them, rather than trying to give a more secular democratic privilege. And this is where I try and think that maybe in future, the third gender or the queer will not be treated as the otherized, as we have been treating the witches as otherized in Macbeth. Thank you.